This is a little more upbeat. Connie is requesting a sea shanty for today's stream. Could you indulge? Connie is requesting a sea shanty. That is not a sea shanty. Can we hear a sea shanty, please?
I can't play things when I'm told to. It happens or it doesn't. I'm not at the point where I can take requests. Unless it's church music.
Let's have some church music then.
Oh god. Hold on. I need to find it. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, we got lots of news here today. You know what I have not seen? See, here's the thing, Coach Kevin, that people need to realize. In order to be successful in this life, you need to find a niche, right? You need to find something that few, if any, other people are providing. I think for you...
Hold on, I take it back. I can't produce church music.
You can't do church music on a lyre either, although I was thinking...
Just in my head.
Just in your head, there's always church music playing.
Sorry, no requests.
Oh, boo.
Hold on.
I'm holding on.
There it goes. Yeah.
Is it Come All Ye Faithful or something?
No,
What is that?
Beethoven's Ninth?
That's not church music.
That's not true. Well, I mean, it depends on the church you go to.
Here we go. I got news of the day. You ready? This is exciting stuff right here. Coronavirus cases fall 90%. Bay Area counties move closer to reopening. Governor, well, I don't know how long he's going to be governor. Apparently he's very unpopular right now. There'll be a recall for him. I don't think it's going to win, or succeed. But anyway, Governor Gavin Newsom said there could be substantial movement in California's 4-tiered reopening system next week.
Ooh.
6 Bay Area counties are among the 8 closest to advancing to the red tier.
Red tier.
We're in the purple tier right now.
Yeah, we are.
It reminds me of Prince. You know, I went on a little Prince YouTube kick, and I was watching some of his performances, including Purple Rain. Anyway, purple tier, Purple Rain. He was an incredible performer.
Do you think the guitar is just a big phallic symbol?
That too. I don't know about just, but
not just.
Let's see. Let's see if we mentioned. Let's see.
That's why I play the lyre.
Let's see. Where are we?
Are we just reading the news now?
Well, I wanted to say. Let's see. 7 counties in and around the Bay Area are close to advancing, led by San Francisco, Marin, and San Mateo counties, with Santa Clara, Alameda, Sonoma, and nearby Santa Cruz counties not far behind. They update the tier information every Tuesday. So, okay, when counties fall into the red tier, restaurants are allowed to reopen for indoor, not just outdoor service at 25% capacity or 100 people, whichever is fewer. Also, movie theaters, zoos, aquariums, and museums can reopen at 25% capacity. Gyms can reopen indoors, that's us, at 10% capacity. So, I mean, I think Tuesday we might get some good news.
Nice.
I mean, it could be this Tuesday, it could be next Tuesday, but there's movement, which is good, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Let me get out of here and go back to my original thing. That's not where I wanted to go. There was the other one that I wanted to highlight here. San Jose gym fined nearly $1 million for defying COVID-19 rules, closes its doors for now. Let's see what they had to say for themselves. I gotta start doing this more. Let's see, the gym had previously argued that it was an essential business and was exercising its, where'd it go? Constitutional right to peacefully protest by staying open. That, my friends, is not a compelling argument.
It's not. It's really not. I mean, I don't know. If you didn't charge your customers, that might be an argument.
Oh no, they're fully charged.
Oh yeah, that's not an argument.
I mean, that's the whole point, is they're staying open, because, I mean, look, I don't...
Well, I mean, you can, if you stayed open because you believe that, like, the government has no right to close, then yeah, like, you can do that. But if you're doing it and also charging your customers, I don't know, it's a little weird. You know, like, pick a thing. Be patriotic and make it a personal thing, or be a business and make money.
I know you're sad today, because Rush Limbaugh died.
Yeah. Devastated.
Devastating.
I'm not really actually sure who he is or
You know who Rush Limbaugh is?
I know people hate him.
No, people love him. He's beloved in America.
Really?
By
That's
some
not the vibe
people,
I'm getting.
by the Trump crowd.
Okay.
I would say
What has he?
this was Trump's genius. If I had to say
Rush
it.
Limbaugh was Trump's
Yeah,
genius.
well, let me finish the statement.
Okay.
And then you can laugh at me if you want.
Okay.
Trump's genius was essentially figuring out what people like Rush Limbaugh were saying on the radio
Mm.
and
He's
making
a
that his
radio guy?
political platform.
Oh.
Because if you think about it, you know, I bet if you were to look at Rush Limbaugh's overall numbers, like his ratings,
Mhm.
and you looked at like Tucker Carlson, all the right-wing people, and there are other right-wing media hosts, it's not just like Rush Limbaugh,
Uh-huh.
and you were to add them up, I bet you come close to the 70 million people who voted for Trump. And I think he essentially just listened to conservative talk radio and conservative media and said, these people have like millions of followers. They're incredibly successful people. If I just tell people what these people are saying, those people will vote. Their listeners will vote for me.
Uh-huh.
And I think he was right. I mean, that is a pretty good way of figuring out, like, how do I get people to vote for me? Well, let me look at the most popular radio hosts
Mhm.
on the right wing
Uh-huh.
and just say what they're saying.
What is Rush Limbaugh saying?
I mean, I'm not going to go into everything. I mean, I'm not an avid listener. I don't think I've ever listened to Rush Limbaugh.
So I have no opinions about him.
I mean, I have opinion. I mean, that's not fair that I've read things that he's written.
I haven't even done that.
So, and I have to say,
Why did you read those things?
because every once in a while I like to read what people on the other side have right, and see if they. Sometimes, you know, look, I won't say that everything that the other side says is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's the other side,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to keep an open mind, even if you don't always agree with a group or a political organization or whatever.
Oh no, you were talking earlier about like the seeming of the like shift or the division between people, and then listening to you talk about like the other side is interesting.
What is that?
Like you like study the arguments of the other side, and you study the works of the leaders of the other side, as if like, you know, there's something that you have to prepare yourself to fight, you know, and like
I wouldn't say it's to
get
fight.
yourself ready
I
for
think
the battle.
I think it's important to understand other people's arguments
Yeah, but the way
and
you frame
recognize
it,
which ones of them make, you know, more sense than others.
but you're already categorizing them as an enemy, which I think is interesting.
I just said the other side. I didn't say they were my enemy.
That's kind of what the other side means.
No, that's not true.
It's a
You might be. I mean, if we're in jiu-jitsu and I'm training with somebody who's my
you're
training
making
partner,
a clear
they're not my
division.
enemy.
You're making a clear division between like us and them, right? The other side.
Well,
It's not like
conservatives.
conservatives, but you didn't say
Yeah.
conservatives. You said the other side.
I
So
mean,
thought
that's
that was
a
interesting.
shorthand for conservatives. If you know me, when I talk about the other side, or the dark side, or the evil side, the forces of evil,
Yeah,
the night
the other
and
side.
darkness.
I mean, why do people like him so much?
What's that?
Why do people like Rush Limbaugh so much? Why is he popular?
I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons why he's popular. I think he has an appeal to a certain psychology, a certain mentality, a certain set of, or if you're a person with a certain set of beliefs. And this is not something that is just a monopoly, possessed by conservative talk radio, right? If you turn on to CNN, you'll get the same thing. It'll just be on the other side of the argument, right?
Did you just want to use the word other side in a sentence without it being...
No, it just came out that way, okay? So, I mean, I don't mean to suggest that, right-wing media made this stuff up, because I think CNN was actually the one who came up with the formula.
And what formula is that?
The formula where you have a panel, and on that panel you'll have three people who are, well, you might have the moderator who's supposedly neutral.
Yeah.
And then you'll have two or three other panelists who are essentially on one side of the debate. And then you'll have another person who's on the other side of the debate. But that person won't actually present the most compelling arguments. They are there to present all the straw man arguments.
Well, or
to be the ridiculous, the caricature of the other side's arguments.
Or they just find someone who's as unprepared as they can find.
Unprepared or unlikable or all of the above, right? It's usually, and that way the liberal or the conservative gets destroyed.
It's don't do his makeup
or beat up and everyone thinks, everyone on that side of the debate goes home thinking yeah, we kicked their ass, that guy has no good ideas.
Yeah.
My
team is the smart team.
CNN, I think, essentially blazed that trail. But so, I mean, I'm not letting that
really
go.
I guess, did the Talking Heads thing come up with the 24-hour news cycle?
Yeah. Because you needed to fill content. You needed content. So it wasn't enough to just give the news, the nightly news. And the other thing is that if you just sat there and gave news all day, the Talking Heads, or not the Talking Heads, the news anchor.
Yeah.
It gets boring after a while to watch that. They used to have something, I forget if they still have it, where it was every 15 minutes or every half hour they would just recycle.
Yeah.
Essentially saying the same thing, but maybe there was a little bit more of a development, or there's another story, or whatever it was. There might be a feature, that had been prepared. But for the most part, it was just, I forget what it was called. It was every 30 minutes, or every 45 minutes, it was just on a cycle. Yeah. And it's fine if you just want to sit and watch for 15 minutes, right, and catch up on the news. But, they wanted to have people come and watch. And in order to do that, you need to have some fireworks. You need to have people arguing about stuff.
Yeah, opinions about things.
You need to have lots of strong opinions.
Opinions.
People, they used to have a show called Crossfire, right? Where it's essentially just people arguing with each other.
Isn't that, they have that on Sports Network?
Yeah, oh yeah, so ESPN imported that. They were saying if we just sit here and talk about the game results, people were gonna be yeah, that's cool, we like to watch highlights, but
yeah.
After the highlights were done, it's well, what are people gonna watch? So they got Skip Bayless and they got Stephen A. Smith, two guys who really have no effing clue what they're talking about, talking.
No idea what that's like.
What's that? That's like us. But it wasn't less informative. So we're pretty poorly informed, but these guys are even less informed. And they also had what was the other one? They had not the sports reporters, they had another one with the two guys from Chicago who would argue with each other. I forget what that was called. But it was essentially the same format where people would just it's like Siskel and Ebert, where they sat there and they said, I can't believe you gave that movie such a terrible review. I loved it. It was reminiscent of, Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca.
It's good though for people who don't have opinions about things, so that I know what opinions I should have. Because I don't know anything about basketball, right? So if I go over and
it's okay not to have an opinion about something.
Yeah, especially
right? If
basketball,
you're not informed,
right? So
yes.
So I go in and I want to watch some basketball, or I want watching some things, and if you just gave me a bunch of statistics or who won the game and what happened, I would understand, but I wouldn't fully understand the happenings,
right.
the cultural implications of what the events would have kind of signified. But when you have people up there who know what is going on, it's nice to have that like informed viewpoint.
Yeah.
You know.
Or
Whereas,
for what it looks like an informed viewpoint.
well,
But
to
passes.
me, it's more informed than mine, and at least like it gets you into an idea of what to think about the sport,
Right.
which is nice. But I don't know, it is a lot. I used to like top 10 countdowns.
With David Letterman?
No, with
ESPN, yes.
Or like you
Yes.
know, top 10 plays of
The
yesterday.
plays of the day. Yeah.
And then like maybe a little bit of commentary, but then like that's it. That's all the sports I needed. Thank you very much.
That was the heyday of ESPN
Oof.
with Dan Patrick and not Mike Tirico. Who was the other guy? Dan Patrick and the other guy. What was his name? He was on ESPN too. Keith Olbermann. That was his name. Those were the two main anchors back in the day.
I used to watch it in 8th grade before, I think it was social studies. And
So you watched it at school?
yeah.
How did you watch it at school? You have with
Our
software?
teacher, like the teacher who taught me everything that I know about the government, pretty much, like would always put it on. It was really cool. They taught me about manifest destiny, all sorts of things,
Okay.
fun stuff. I don't know, fun facts.
Fun facts
Fun facts.
about the U.S. government.
Do you want to continue the discussion? You had a bunch of questions earlier. Do you want to see if I can fumble my way through this?
In terms of what?
Like arguing the point?
What point?
Any point.
Any point?
Yeah, I mean, what was your
We should make it
earlier question?
jiu-jitsu related. I think people are tired of listening to my political rant.
We can always circle it back to jiu-jitsu. That's the great thing about jiu-jitsu. You can make up a metaphor for anything using jiu-jitsu.
Who do you think has done more damage to jiu-jitsu? Who's been the worst influence on jiu-jitsu?
The worst?
Yeah, like if there's somebody who's done damage to jiu-jitsu, who do you think it would be? If anyone, you don't have to say,
Damage.
Like worst jiu-jitsu heels of all time, or most, right? There's a couple people that you could think of who have done terrible things or not such optimal things. If you don't want to call anybody out by name, I totally understand.
Nah, Paul Harris probably.
Paul Harris.
No, I know a guy named Paul Harris who trains.
Paul Harris?
And it's actually pretty funny. Paul Harris.
Why?
Because, like, he, I think, was the most, not dangerous, but threatening, maybe, to the most important base rule of jiu-jitsu. Like, to have someone who systematically and, like, unabashedly ignores the tap
Yes.
over and over and over again.
But only in competition,
It doesn't matter.
as far as we know.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That sort of behavior can't be tolerated, and by tolerating it or by allowing him to compete, I think that was setting a dangerous precedent. But eventually they kicked him out.
They did. They banned him.
They banned him from either UFC or like.
I think all of the above. I think he's not allowed. He's persona non grata.
Yeah. So.
So because he violated.
But like, it's still, I don't think he was like trying to. He's just, I don't know. I shouldn't say anything that I wouldn't say to his face because he's scary. But I don't know, the non-tapping rule or the tapping.
It was an odd thing, right? It was an odd thing.
It was weird because, like, especially when I would hear stories of him like tearing off like knees and then like being really apologetic about it right afterwards. It was like.
You think after like one or two?
Well,
I mean, the thing was, is like, look, there's situations where, you're having a hard roll. Both sides or both people are kind of maybe a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're trying to finish, and you're trying to finish hard because maybe the last time you tried to finish and tried to be nice, the person didn't tap, right? And they kind of took advantage of your reticence to hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this time you go extra hard, and you're not really meaning to injure the person. You just really want to get them to tap.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they just tap a little late, and you might hurt them. And then you would be kind of more or less apologetic. I mean, it's still kind of their fault, but, there's that late tapping thing. But like with Paul Harris, it would be, he'd be on the heel, and the guy would be like, tapping. The ref would be trying to pull his hands apart And he's like, still cranking, and it's like, you can count like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, and the guy's like, please let him go. You know, there were a couple times I remember when people would be like, well, maybe he didn't hear him, or maybe, he was at the thick of the fight and the fog of war. And then there was like, just that, like 5 seconds of him just cranking while the other dude is like.
No, what I heard was in one of his matches or one of his fights, he goes after the heel hook, tears it. The guy is screaming in pain. Before the match can end or the fight gets on, he grabs the other one, tears that one too.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
I mean, I kind of think that enhances the reputation of jiu-jitsu. In a perverse way. It shows the power.
There's a part of me that appreciates that, that like a monster can find a way to channel that into something semi-productive.
Yes.
Because it's obviously, again, I should say something that I would say to his face. That's a scary person who's willing to do that, right? And it's nice that he's able to like have jujitsu, but it's still like he might be a little too much for jujitsu. That's
we were talking yesterday, actually the last couple days, about, jiu-jitsu and MMA.
Yeah.
Right? And how kind of maybe it's fallen off a little bit. But in a way, in the moment, right? And I'm not condoning what he did to his opponents, but it is refreshing to have somebody, at a certain level, that comes in and just puts the fear of God, and they are doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
That's Ryan Hall too, right? Because did he tear what's the prodigy's name?
BJ Penn.
BJ Penn. Did he end up tearing?
I believe that he did tear his knee.
Because it was, I saw that, and he looked bad.
Yeah.
And that's a career.
If you don't tap to Ryan Hall, he will tear out your leg.
And then you're done.
Here's the thing: in MMA, these guys are not going to tap. Like you think jiu-jitsu, like in jiu-jitsu tournaments, there's a lot of people who just won't tap.
Yeah.
In MMA, guys are not going to tap. Like that's like just.
That's bad.
So you have to, if you're a Ryan Hall, especially a Ryan Hall, who people don't give enough respect to, I think, or maybe now they are because they're all ducking him.
Yeah.
But,
well, if you knew that the person across from you thought that the only way that they could win is not to submit you, but to break your knee off.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to fight.
And it was Ryan Hall.
Yeah.
Who is one of the best heel hookers, right? Certainly in MMA.
That's the thing. Like you would think that would make people a little bit more willing to tap, because then you'd be like, oh, it's like at least it's Ryan Hall.
No, but I think a lot of MMA guys are like, I'm not tapping to that nerd. Like that's it's almost like a thing of dishonor to tap to such a dorky looking.
We don't need to lump MMA people into like barbarians and idiots.
There's plenty of them. Come on. There's some intelligent, articulate.
Not maybe at the tippy top, but like there's still a bunch of smart guys. I don't think the MMA crowd is inherently smarter than the jiu-jitsu crowd.
No, that's true. Maybe. I don't know.
I
think jiu-jitsu crowd is smarter than the MMA crowd.
No.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I don't know. I think it's just as wide of a range of.
Maybe. It's hard to sample, right?
I don't know. I would probably tend to agree that jiu-jitsu attracts a nerdier person, but nerdier doesn't necessarily mean smarter. That would be the argument I would go with.
Okay.
What else? What were we talking about? Were we talking about freedom again?
What's that?
Were we talking about freedom again?
No, we were talking about the people who've done the worst damage to jiu-jitsu, like to the reputation of jiu-jitsu.
I feel like you want me to say Gordon Ryan because of his talk.
No, I didn't. I wasn't thinking of Gordon at all.
Like, it's just, I don't know. We've talked about it. Everyone, my opinion about it.
He has brought jiu-jitsu trash talking to a new level.
But I wouldn't say it's damaged jiu-jitsu. Like, jiu-jitsu hasn't seen any harm come to it because of it. He's just, I don't know. It is what it is. It's not ideal, I don't think. I don't think it embodies, like, the original spirit of, like, martial arts.
As Gordon likes to point out, jiu-jitsu in the beginning was a lot of trash talking and challenging people and making fun of people and fighting on the beach.
Yeah.
And
But like, I'm talking about like martial arts, not necessarily jiu-jitsu.
Oh, so now it's some martial arts.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just talking about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, well, it's fair because, like, I don't know, the jiu-jitsu that I like isn't meant to make money, you know? And then I think Gordon Ryan's is, and I feel like trash talk goes
I mean, if
into
you're a
that.
professional athlete, right, like he is, he's
So-
in it to make money,
So
right?
then,
Like,
in that case,
that's
like,
what a professional athlete is by definition doing.
so then maybe it is the best thing for sport jiu-jitsu.
It raises the profile. I don't, I mean, well, I appreciate his skill for sure. And he does work hard, and he does well. You know, that, and I can't really fault him for, you know, trying at least to raise his profile and make money by doing what he's doing. I don't think it's helpful to jiu-jitsu in the long run. But, you know, whatever. Whatever puts butts in the seats, I guess, right?
Why butts in the seats? Is that the important thing for jiu-jitsu in the long run? Like spectatorship?
Well, if you are an athlete who gets paid, and if you're a promoter
But we're talking
who makes
about
money,
Jiu-jitsu, not sport
Well,
jiu-jitsu.
I mean, you could make an argument that anything that raises the profile of jiu-jitsu is beneficial to jiu-jitsu, right? Raises the profile, like, in the public consciousness.
What, what if it came out that like all of the Gracies were Nazis? That probably wouldn't be good for the overall public conscious of jiu-jitsu, you know? Even if it's, especially because it's bad. Not all publicity is good publicity.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to suggest that just because you're in the papers, you know, for some criminal activity or
Yeah.
for some, like, terrible philosophy that you may have
So like I would say
is good.
it's inherently good because his talk is bringing in people. You know, it could have long-term effects downstream.
Well,
but-
to the extent that, well, let's put it this way. To the extent you have a person or a group of people who raise the profile of the sport, regardless of whether they're good or bad people, right, or whether they do it in a good, bad way,
yeah.
if more people stick around, right, become fans of the sport, that will hopefully increase the money, the pool of money for everyone, right, in terms of everyone who comes after them.
Yeah.
Right, like, so MMA, like in the beginning, MMA was like UFC was a terrible thing. Like it was roundly condemned, you know, by every politician and official. And some of that was self-interested, right? Like boxing commissions didn't like seeing their money get ciphered away. But, you know, it was banished to like, you know, Native American, reservations. I was almost thinking to say plantation.
Not plantations.
But reservations.
I would've said the same thing.
And it was something that like, it was gonna disappear. Like they almost went out of business.
Yeah.
So, you know, but those guys, they blazed the trail, right? Like they brought people to the seats, and MMA became a sport because of what the craziness that those guys brought to the table.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a lot of these guys, I'm sure, were not the, you know, Tank Abbott, not a role model, but you know, like he was a huge fan favorite. I mean, he definitely got people to tune in because they wanted to see him fight.
Do you think, like, so I think that increasing viewership would be good for people like Gordon Ryan, Andre, like people who compete and make money off of competition. Do you think that increased viewership would help smaller academies who aren't necessarily in that competitive culture, just by increasing the amount of cultural awareness of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Is it worth whatever possible damage you might be doing?
It's, you know, the thing is about it, I think people are able to separate the individual from the art, if you will, right? Just because, I mean, we've had, look, we could go on for an hour or longer with all the, you know, kind of criminal activity that's been alleged and or proven, committed by jiu-jitsu athletes, students, school owners, you know, MMA fighters, coaches, you know, like there's definitely been a lot of criminal activity.
Shenanigans, we'll call
like serious criminal activity. Not I'm not joking about it. There have been guys, prominent athletes, prominent coaches who've been accused and or convicted of serious criminal offenses, right? And I think most people can say like, okay, jiu-jitsu is not this, person A, B, C, or D, right? It's something bigger, and then people who do jiu-jitsu are, by and large, not criminals. They may not be the best people in the world, right? Like, I'm not trying to say like every jiu-jitsu coach or every jiu-jitsu student is like paragon of virtue, but they're not criminals, right? And they're not going to hurt you just for the sake of hurting you or exploiting you for the sake of exploiting you, right? That's not what they're in the sport for. The majority, I would say the vast majority. So, I don't think, when we talk about Gordon Ryan, I don't think he's doing anything illegal.
Not illegal.
You know what I mean?
But bad is different than
I mean, I don't think trash talking is in and of itself bad for the sport. I mean, if you look at like basketball, for example, when I started watching basketball, it had been coming out of this era where it was like, the NBA finals were shown on tape delay at like midnight. Like nobody cared. Like it was not a national, it was a national league, but it just wasn't a popular sport to watch, right? I mean, it didn't have the ratings.
Yeah.
And, I started watching the NBA when Bird and Magic kind of came on the scene. And they were superstars, and they were very charismatic in their own ways. But, there was a rivalry, and those guys talked smack to each other. And Michael Jordan came along, and he talked smack. The league was a tough place. So, I think those rivalries, and you would talk, I remember there was one time, this is later, I think in the late 80s, when a guy like Isaiah Thomas, who was a big star, started talking smack about Larry Bird. Basically, I don't know if you remember this, but he was like, if Larry Bird were black, he would just be another average, pretty good player in the league. But because he's white, he's got to be a big star. Now, that
controversial opinion.
This is that's the sort of thing. If you were like, is this good or bad for basketball? 20, 30 years ago, you would have to say.
Yeah, that's going to cause some arguments.
It's bad for basketball, right? Like we don't want to encourage racial tension. And there was plenty of it too, right? Let's not pretend that there isn't.
Yeah, it's the NBA.
In the NBA, Indiana was the site of another huge thing when Ron Artest charged into the crowd.
Yeah.
When a white fan was berating him, I think he threw something at him.
Was that a racial thing?
There's a latent
I
racial.
thought it was a drink.
There's a latent. I looked at it as a latent racial. I'm not sure if that guy was being racist. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that. But when you have a group of white fans who are berating a black basketball player for something as silly as a basketball game, and this is the thing, right? This guy had a lot of cojones, right?
Wait,
I've stood next to Meta World Peace now, Ron Artest. He's a big dude.
Meta World.
Yeah, he changed his name.
Oh, cool.
I was at Stanford for jiu-jitsu, and he was actually there with his son.
No way.
I didn't play. I never played basketball anymore, but yeah. But I was there, and he was like at the drink machine while I was trying to get a drink, and I was like,
yeah.
There is no way.
I bet from the court he looked like a normal sized person.
And then he got closer. He's like when you're you curse out the dude in the little car, and then he gets out and he's like 6'8". You're like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. That was a person that, I don't care who it was, I would never say anything disrespectful to that guy. Just off the cuff. Hey, you loser, or whatever. The dude's huge. He's and he's.
And didn't he already have a history of
Yeah, he choked his coach. No, that was Latrell Sprewell who choked his coach. That was Golden State, I believe. I think Latrell choked PJ Carlissimo.
I forget, but I don't know. I remember that Ron Artest.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't the only incident.
No, it definitely was not. But
can you imagine knowing that the guy is already he's willing to fight, willing to scrap, and then
that guy was making a bet with himself that Ron Artest would not dare to get up and
he was wrong,
and he lost.
But I feel
but that's the thing where you'd say these types of things are bad for the sport. I was referencing more the Larry Bird Isaiah thing, but that kind of trash talking definitely got people watching because you wanted to see what Larry Bird was going to do to the Pistons the next time they got on the court.
What I was annoyed about was, can I go back to runner test? They blamed him.
They did. I don't think they should have.
Someone throws a drink at me when I'm doing my job, I'm going to get upset too.
Well, this was the thing that I think at the time, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a lot of blowback
On both ends of it,
Yeah.
right? Like, these players shouldn't be allowed to go and bully but there was equal pushback of like, hey, fans need to be respectful of the athletes.
Yeah.
And it was after that that they started, you used to be able to say whatever you wanted in an NBA, like pretty much.
Yeah.
But now, like, if you started directly addressing players
Yeah.
and calling them out by name, I remember, LeBron would get yanked.
Yeah.
Players would be like, take him out of here. And they started doing it because
It's better than. Yeah. That's good.
some people, they don't get it, right? Like, they don't understand that
Well,
these guys
they
can
just-
snap you in half.
People think that because you bought a ticket to the game that they work for you for this like 3 hours. That's not how it works. Just it's a
This is the thing that actually bothers me a lot
Yeah.
about sports, is the idea that the players are there solely for your amusement
Yeah.
and entertainment, and that you're allowed to like do and say whatever you like to
Yeah.
them.
Like the ticket makes you their boss or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's an attitude there that is kind of ugly when you think about it.
That's also why I don't like going out to eat with my mom. But she does the same thing with waitresses.
Is she disrespectful to the waitresses?
She's not completely
But
disrespectful.
blatantly
like,
disrespectful?
Just like, makes them work harder than I would normally.
Do you make sure you give them a good tip?
Try. I don't know. It's been a while, so I'm sure she's changed since then. But they're like the same thing, a weird set of
I
expectations.
mean, you can tell a lot, I think, about a person by how they treat
Basketball players.
waiters, waitresses,
Yeah.
valets, whatever, people that are, the cashier behind the counter at
I
McDonald's.
hope my mom's not watching this. I'm sorry, Mom.
Well, if you're disrespectful to people who, in a way, right? Like, why? Why are you disrespectful? Like, I remember I was over at Safeway the other day, this is a couple months ago, and there was this Asian woman behind the counter. She's a little bit older, not like 60, but she's probably in her 40s. She's working behind, I don't know why, I don't know her story. She's working at Starbucks at Safeway, and there's this really old, like 70s white woman, and the white woman gets really mad because her latte is like not hot enough. And she starts like yelling and berating this woman.
Yeah.
Like really like, what's wrong with you? Are you stupid? All this stuff. And this poor woman is like just sitting there taking it. And I've seen her before, like she's very mild mannered, she's very nice. Like,
The Starbucks lady or the yellow?
the Starbucks lady. The old lady is like ripping into her, and then she'd look at me and be like, can you imagine this idiot? And she wasn't racial about it, right? It wasn't like a stupid Asian or anything, but she was super disrespectful. And
Do you think it was due to the race?
I think it was more about the economic. I think it was more that she was on this side of the counter and the girl or the woman was on the other side. I don't think it was racial, but it could have been. I mean, she didn't make it explicitly so, and I didn't assume that it
It would
was.
be weird to like make that jump, I think.
But I remember she's looking at me and like for some approval, like I approve of this, abuse.
Hot lattes.
And I said to her, and then she got mad because she counted the change, and then it wasn't like exactly, but she asked for an extra, and then the girl hadn't given her the extra, so then she got mad because she hadn't got the extra, right? Because she thought she had been overcharged, and then it just turned out that the woman just hadn't given her the extra, so she didn't charge her for that.
Oh man.
Whatever. Anyway, so then I said to the woman, I was like, look, you don't need to be so hard on her. She's just trying to do her job. She was back there by herself, I'm like, she didn't do it on purpose. Like, cut her a break.
Yeah.
And the woman is like, she didn't see the woman behind the counter, behind the Starbucks employee. I don't even think she heard what I said. She didn't say anything to me. But there was a woman behind me who was like, thank you for sticking up for her, because that woman was a little unreasonable, whatever. And but like when you do, the point is just that when people do that sort of thing, I'm just like, why? Like, why are you getting so angry at the poor person behind
I've actually
the
been
Starbucks
thinking about
counter?
this because the current trend is to blame it on the Karens, right?
The what?
The Karens. You've heard of these people.
Yes, this woman was definitely a Karen.
Right. The Karen is,
Yes.
is a new phenomenon that is.
I mean, no, it's always existed. It just it has a name now.
It has a name now, right?
And a haircut.
I like to consider that the emergence. Once you put a name on it, you
There's a
identify
meme.
that,
It has a meme now.
right? But it's never like 20-year-old Karens. Like sometimes you can get to
There are some of those.
They exist, great. But for the most part, it's like people like 40 and above.
Yeah.
Usually. So I was thinking about this and like, why is there such a high expectation of service amongst people of like this age? And I wonder if like service expectations actually have changed over the last couple of decades. Like the amount of attention one would get from a waiter. Like, has that gradually changed over time to where like women are now like freaking out and
I don't think so. I used to wait tables a lot when I was in high school and college. And I waited tables across the full gamut, you know, everywhere from, and I worked behind counters, like deli counters, you know. So, you know, I don't see any, like when we go to, you know, Uncle John's over here,
Yeah.
like I don't think there's any, like I'm not like, oh, in my day I would have waited this table so much better.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same,
Exactly.
right? I think. I've never noticed anyone who's worse.
Yeah.
If I do, and the other thing that people have to understand too is, you know, these people, they're not just by themselves. Like they are dependent upon the kitchen, they're dependent upon the other waiters, the bus people. That, you know, if you're in Starbucks by yourself, you're running the cash register, you're making the drinks, you're doing everything by yourself. You know, maybe you haven't been stocked up the right way, right? Like maybe there's other factors. It's not your fault. Now, you know, you can't sit there and be like, it's not my fault. But I just don't agree that you need to be. The only thing that gets me pissed off is when people lie to me. I had a thing when I went to this place. I won't say what it was, but you know, we were sitting there for like 45 minutes, and nothing had come out. And I had been like, look, I had 3 little kids with me. I'm like, can you just bring out their, you know, they had hot dogs. Like it takes 2 minutes to make a hot dog.
Yeah.
And it just, this girl just, or no, I shouldn't say this waitress, you know, kept, at first she'd come out and be like, it's coming out, it's coming out, it's coming out. And then she just disappeared.
Ooh.
And she wouldn't, like, I would see her, but she wouldn't come near us. So she would, like, go to the other side of the bar to pick up her drinks, and she wouldn't come near our table.
Yeah.
And so eventually, I was like, hey, come, you know, I like tracked her down, there's her food, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And essentially it just never came, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't yell at her, I was like, whatever. But I also was like, I'm not paying for this meal,
Yeah.
you know? And that was fine, but I still am not gonna like scream at somebody, you know, who's working for tips,
Yeah.
you know, in front of their boss. Because I've been, you know, I've seen that and it's ugly, you know, when people do that.
What if the price of the meal has changed such that now, well, back then, the level of price that you would like, it would be acceptable to yell at a waiter? You know, like
I don't think it's ever acceptable to yell at a waiter.
you know,
Unless they say something really
for a
disrespectful.
person, right? Like there are a lot of different people.
Yes.
And then, you know, if you're not so well off and you go to a medium fancy restaurant and you
Yeah.
have these high expectations
Yes.
and this poor girl isn't meeting them,
Yes.
you're gonna be like, yo, like I spent
Yes.
a lot of my money on
Yes.
this. This is something important to me.
Yes.
This needs to be perfect. Why aren't you meeting my expectations? Where
Yes.
there's someone over here eats out every other day.
Sure.
No problem. It gives the waitress a little bit of a break
Yes.
because their expectations
Everyone's
are
got different expectations, you're right.
a little bit lower.
I mean, I think whatever your expectations are, again, there are situations where the waiter is rude to you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you could, I mean, I don't think that you should have to take that either. But if the person is kind of just being incompetent in their job or whatever, it seems like that to you,
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't address that by screaming at the person. I'd probably get their manager and talk to the manager,
Of course.
you know, because I'm Karen. I'm like the male Karen.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is with the Karens is that they're being unreasonably demanding.
But why? Like, there's
Because
gotta-
their
there's gotta be-
expectations are higher than what is generally acceptable for a given situation.
But like that's what I'm trying to.
Like
figure
if you
out.
don't bag my
What is it?
groceries the way that I usually like them to be bagged, I shouldn't scream at you.
Yeah. So then.
That's kind of the Karenish
So what is
behavior.
it about these particular people?
They're unreasonable.
But
They have unreasonable demands.
there's got to be, I don't know, there should be a reason. If I'm gonna,
Because they're unreasonable people. They're just jerks.
That's
Or
doesn't make any sense
they're,
either.
I mean, sometimes they just like to be bullies. They're bullies. You know, I like to go out and feel like I'm a big person because I get to, you know, yell at you, and you don't really, because you work here and you have a manager and whatever, you can't give it back to me. I'm actually able to vent my spleen on you because, you know, you're not going to give it back to me. There's no danger to me. I can scream at the employee, and they're probably not going to attack me for it.
I mean, I believe that there are people who, when they have bad days, you know, they end up taking it out on strangers.
Or they go home and kick their dog, or both.
Or, you know, yeah,
Right.
both. But, both. I don't know. I can't, I'm sure these people exist, because there are just so many people, but.
I mean, I really can't think of that many instances. The instance at the Starbucks was like one of the few times that I've seen
Like when
somebody
that
just go
happens,
off.
it's weird, right?
It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It very rarely happens. And
But I don't like seeing somebody just, you know, like I know that that girl is not, or that woman is not going to take, you know, is not going to sit there and argue with this woman. So,
this today I actually had an incident when I went to the CVS to like prescription things. There was a woman in front of me and she was like trying to,
the prescription is like a whole other level.
she was like having like a hard time. She wanted to get this COVID vaccine and
Yeah.
she was like, I'm trying to get this rapid test, and she was being very obnoxious.
Yes.
And she was annoying me a lot.
Because you're sitting there waiting.
Well, I'm just waiting, like living my life, but I didn't have anything to do, so I was just like, all right. But she's like, again, like to me, I'm getting this Karen vibe from
Yes.
this woman, and she's just like bothering me, and
Yes.
it's fine. And then her son comes up, and he's like mentally special needs.
Yes. Yeah.
And then suddenly it was like, oh, like I get why you're stressed right
Yes.
now. And it's
Yes.
just like you've got a lot happening
Yes.
that I didn't know about
Sure.
a minute ago. And then it's like, oh, all right, and then I like kind of cooled off a little bit. Like, not that I was like super heated, but it was like, oh, like this is why she's that.
You
way.
felt sympathetic for her because you
Yeah.
understood a little bit of like where her frustration and was coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
like,
no.
And
I
maybe.
mean, I guess I think that's right. That some people have like some sort of. I mean, the thing is like, yes, you may be frustrated. You may be. I try to explain this to my kids. You know, like sometimes I'm in a bad mood, or I'm frustrated, or I'm stressed about something, and I might like snap at you know one of my kids,
Yeah.
right? And when that happens, I really try to go and apologize to them and explain to them, hey, listen, I wasn't mad at you. I'm stressed about this other thing. I'm really sorry. You know, and just reassure them that I'm not just being a total jerk just for the sake of being a total jerk,
Yeah.
but also that it's not right? Like they're owed an apology because they're not the reason why I'm mad. So I'm kind of just inadvertently taking it out on them.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when you're dealing with somebody else, and this is true, bringing it back to jiu-jitsu, you see this often where people are frustrated in their everyday lives. They come in here and they take out that aggression on their training partners. And thankfully, you know, I think there's enough of a culture in jiu-jitsu where that's not really, you know, smiled on, right, or approved.
Yeah.
You know, and there's usually enough of a mix of skill sets that if you really, you know, if you go and you kind of take it out on some white belt, there's probably going to be a higher belt or somebody who's bigger or stronger, whatever it is that's going to put you back into your place, if it even comes to that. But, I mean, there's a good way in jiu-jitsu to take your frustrations out in a positive way. But it shouldn't be like taking them out on your training partner.
Yeah.
You know, although I've seen that too, where people just are not thinking. You know, they're stressed about something and they come in and they want to let off that steam without thinking. You know, they do the Paul Harris, right? I'm reliving whatever trauma on your knee, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to be, I think, cognizant of. Right, I just remembered another situation. I was at the DMV the other day to get my license renewed. And I'm sitting there waiting for my turn, and there's this woman up at the counter who's like swearing at the. And now, if you work at the DMV, this must happen to you every 15 minutes, right? It's a highly stressful thing. But did I tell you about this woman? She's like up there, and she's like, "What do you mean I can't renew? What do you mean I have an outstanding warrant? I haven't been arrested in years."
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I had to laugh a little bit to myself because I was actually trying to be quiet. I didn't want to, you know, let this woman know that I was laughing at her. She's, you know, tough-looking customer. But, you know, but she's screaming. She's like, dropping F-bombs. You mean I gotta go back and get this and blah, 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 I gotta stand in that line. And she's lit up,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, I'm sure if you work at the DMV, you got some pretty thick skin. The person behind the counter didn't say anything, just kind of was like, next.
Yeah.
But they're I think they're more accustomed to that kind of frustration being vented out on them.
Do you think that?
But it's also totally unacceptable, right?
Isn't
That person's
I
just
mean,
doing their
but
job.
it's the DMV though. If there's any place where yelling at a public servant is acceptable, it's got to be the DMV. But they're used to it. Like they have the thickest.
It doesn't make
skin.
it right.
Yeah, I know. But
I mean, they don't get paid enough. Like these people. Look. If you have an outstanding warrant that you have not
yeah, it's
dealt
not
with,
their fault.
they're just report. This comes up on their system. If they were to give you whatever it is that you're there to get, they probably get fired for not following their rules, right? Like it's a pretty clear rule. You
Yeah,
can't.
but I'm gonna get in trouble if I yell at a judge. So.
Well, that's a whole different other thing, right?
But,
I mean, I used to have to stand up in front of judges and get yelled at for
Yeah.
things that I had no involvement in whatsoever.
Yeah.
And you just got to sit there and take it because that's your job as a lawyer is to get screamed at. If someone's going to get screamed at, you're the punching bag, right?
Yeah.
The judge is going to, I mean, it's rare for the judge to call in the client and scream at the client.
Yeah.
They're going to scream at you because they know they're going to get away with it, right? If they scream at the client, they might get in trouble. No one ever gets. The only time that judges get yelled at for screaming at lawyers is if it's like a woman and the judge is very misogynistic in how they're addressing the woman lawyer, or if it's whatever it is, if it's a black lawyer and they start making racial
But I thought
overtones
judges
about it, they're going to get in trouble for that.
Judge Judy led me to believe that she could yell at the people as well.
Well, but those are private litigants who have signed an agreement that
Yeah.
they're going to show up, and she's not a real judge anymore. She was a real judge,
Yeah, it was a real judge.
but those things are all.
I've been told that they just give the person the money that they want and they hash it out in
Yeah.
the fake court.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah.
But man, so wait, who gets the judge in trouble if they yell at the person for being dumb?
Well, I mean, it's an odd thing because if I'm the lawyer representing a client,
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to call the judicial board, review board, or whatever it's called in your state, because they yelled at me in some demeaning way, right? Because I have a client, I don't want to piss off the judge.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you do is you'll make a motion to recuse. You'll say the judge is somehow prejudiced, has shown prejudice from the bench. That's a pretty high bar, and it's a big step to take.
Yeah.
Judges don't always take that personally. I mean, in general, they see it as like a litigation strategy, and they're almost, recusals are getting a case removed for a judge or reassigned to another judge is pretty rare. So you got to be careful. You don't want to piss off the judge by making claims about the judge.
How many judges do you guys in your job?
My former job.
Your former job.
Yeah.
Did you see? Was it like a regular, one guy that you?
So
would
each
see
court, so I was mostly in appellate court. So in the appellate courts, they have maybe, depends on the court, right? So there might be 15 or 20 judges that are on the court at any moment, right? And so those judges get assigned, and the state courts. So in New York, there's 4 appellate divisions, right? And it roughly corresponding to the geography, east, west, north, south, north, south. Anyway, and so they'll have somewhere around 20 judges. And so on each particular case, you might get assigned in the New York Appellate Division, you'll get 4 judges, right? And so it could be any combination. So you would see the same judges all the time. And sometimes they're going on and off the court. You might have a new judge here, and every year there'll be something new.
swap out?
Sometimes, and so you'll go and you'll submit, and then you'll argue in front of these particular 4 judges. On the Second Circuit, it's kind of a similar thing where you have active and senior judges, and there might be some judges that are sitting what they call by designation, which just means they might be from another circuit. They might be visiting the court. It might just be checking out the Second Circuit, or it might be a district court judge who's kind of brought up to help out. So you get to know. I only worked for the state for about 3.5, 4 years, and so I don't think I argued in front of every single judge on the court. Like Judge Pierce, I never argued in front of her. She may have been on one of my cases, but I don't think I ever argued in front of her.
Why do you remember that?
Because Judge Pierce is actually a very interesting judge. She's actually she's reputed. I've never argued from her, so I couldn't say, you know, like my personal, but like what people told me about her and what I read about her. She's just an interesting character. She's actually like a world-class level like backgammon player.
Cool.
You know, and she goes off and she does these backgammon tournaments. Suppose I don't know if she still does it.
It's very weird.
But she's like super, like these judges are actually, when you're on the circuit, like they're all really, even the district court benches, they're really interesting people. So anyway.
Do they all have a board game that they like to play and compete with?
No, but it's, you're a repeat performer,
Yeah.
right? So I remember one time, this is actually a district court judge, Judge Pauly, who yelled at me once on a pro bono case. And he like really lit into me. It was in chambers, it wasn't in court, but he like really lit into me, and I was like, Judge, I'm really, and I was like very junior,
Yeah.
and I was like a third year or second year, and I was like, I wasn't about to cry, but I was kind of like, man, why are you being so mean to me, Judge? Like this is a pro bono case, I just got on it.
Yeah.
And
what did you do? Do you remember?
What's that?
Do you remember what?
Well, what happened was this case. It was actually funny because the state. I was working at the firm at the time, and the Attorney General's office was on the other side of the case, and it was like a prison discipline case that we took pro bono, and so I actually when I joined the Attorney General's office later, I actually got to know this guy who was on the other side. But the case had been delayed for a long time. This was a case involving a prisoner who had been, or an inmate who had been in solitary confinement for a really long time. And the judge was pissed because he's like, you know, what's taking you guys so long to even make this motion? That's what he said to me. He's like, what is taking you so long to make this motion? What are you waiting for? And I was like, and he was mad at me. He was like really mad because, you know, he felt like the plaintiff was like getting screwed by me. Like I was just being lazy. And I was like, I just got, you know, I got assigned this case a month ago. I made the motion, you know, a week later. I mean, I haven't even read the whole record yet, you know? And he was like, oh, okay, all right, you know, fine.
Yeah.
But, so usually they're not.
It's nice of him to give you a chance to explain.
I mean, I've seen judges go off on people for no better reason than you're not standing in the right place.
Yeah.
You know? I saw one guy, I remember, and there's nothing more intimidating than when you're a junior associate and you see someone, like a senior lawyer, like a partner, get screamed at in front of like 100 people, you know, and then the...
Do they pay it forward later?
What's that?
If a senior partner gets yelled at?
You know they're going to yell at somebody else for not telling them where to stand. The junior associate or the junior partner is going to get yelled at. But this guy got reamed out by, I forget if the judge's name was Richard something. It was a state court judge, and he just screams like, what did he say? I forget what he said, but it was something like, are you stupid? He's like, are you stupid? Right? And the partner's like, I'm sorry, Your Honor. He's like, did I stutter? Are you stupid? And the guy was like, I don't follow you, Your Honor. He's like, can you read? And he's like, yeah, I can read. He's like, well, why are you standing there? He's like, because this is the table. He's like, no, it's not. Can't you read? And there was like a note down at the table where it said plaintiffs, and this guy was the defendant. And then he finally, you know.
Isn't it usually like the same side of the room, like defendant?
Sometimes, so it's always different courtrooms have different things. Like in federal court, sometimes the plaintiffs might sit in front and the defendants would be behind them.
Oh, weird.
So, you know, it depends on where you are.
Yeah.
You know, some courts don't even have like in some parts of New York Supreme, you know, there's no place for counsel to actually sit. You know, there might be a table or something to put your stuff down, but, you know, you're not up there to in a motions part, you're not there to, like, argue a trial. They have different trial courts for that. But, anyway, now it's fun. Anyway, I don't know.
Was that the felony murder guy?
What's that?
Was that the felony murder guy?
No, this was a guy, he was in prison for, what was he in prison for? For bad things. He did bad, allegedly, he maintained his innocence. Of course, he was an innocent man. But he was actually thrown in the solitary confinement for like a year and a half because some informant said that he had some contraband or something.
What? Lame.
You know, and then we were like, no, like you can't rely on that. Like whatever.
Did they find the contraband? Did they find the contraband?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just BS. Okay. But anyway, he got out eventually, and then he got deported because he was here illegally. So whatever. I don't know where he is. Why did you ask me that question?
Which one?
If I've seen people, if I saw the same judges all the time.
Oh, I forget.
You get to know these judges.
Yeah, I just like.
That's why you can't be full of shit all the time. right?
Yeah.
Because they know you, and if you do it once, then they don't trust you anymore.
Yeah, I was like worried or wondering about like, you know, if something happened, like how would that affect you like later on? Like,
This is also in jiu-jitsu, just to bring it back to jiu-jitsu, it's like, if you're in this
small community.
small community and you're a jerk, nobody's gonna wanna train with you. You can get away with that at a tournament, right? Because everyone kind of is out for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, no one really will know if the reason that you hurt somebody was because you're just a jerk, or if you're going hard.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about jerks in jiu-jitsu. Or people taking their day out on other
Yes.
I don't know, I've been, yeah. Yeah, I don't think, there are people who will come in having a bad day though, and they don't take it out on.
That's true. Yeah.
Which is
No,
nice.
it's not, I mean,
But sometimes it's weird though, because I don't know why they're in such a bad mood. And it's like, they're not taking it out on me, and they're not talking to me. I don't know what's going on, but I don't know.
I mean, as long as you're not taking it out on me, I don't really care.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm like, other than concerned for,
yeah,
you know.
I still care, but yeah, as long as you, it is nice to not have someone try to kill me whenever they're having a bad day, but it does happen. I can understand. I've done it. It's not great.
You never have a bad day, Kevin. Every day is a great day.
Every day
when you're enlightened,
is the same great day.
Oh, who's calling me? Someone's calling me. I don't answer the phone. If your name doesn't come up, if I don't know you, I'm not gonna answer the phone.
Isn't that the like your business line?
Not always.
Oh,
Leave a message.
that's fair.
Leave a message. If I picked up every call that came in, I would never have any free time.
Oh, Mr. Rich, I'm popular. I've got people who call me. They don't text people.
What's that? What? I mean, it's like, you know, it's in Chinese. There's always the Chinese call, and then there's the you know, Google's gonna delist you if you don't call us.
I always get warranties, like my
Warranties is another good
My
one.
warranty is about to expire.
Yep.
How did they know? I don't even know I had a warranty.
I mean, the one that we want to sell you is about to expire if you don't tell us.
I hope
If you don't give us your credit card number. There's a lot of scams. A lot of scams.
stresses me out.
I got scammed. Somebody tried to scam me the other day.
Where?
Well, this was a long time ago.
Where?
This was in the car. My wife was in the car. This was back when she worked at Google.
Uh-huh.
And this guy called me up and was like, I'm with Google. I'm an affiliate, whatever. And, you know, your account is going to be frozen or some nonsense unless you give us this $50. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I was rude to him. And I started making fun of him a little bit.
You were rude to him,
Yes.
but he was just doing his job.
Just doing his scam job. And my wife after I like hung up on him,
He's got a family. I don't know why you're.
I guess. He was one of the guys that was like, he had a very thick Indian accent,
Uh-huh.
but his name was like Jeff or something. And I was like,
I
is
don't
your
think
name?
his name's probably not.
So I was like, so this is how I do it, right? Like, cause I'm like, what's your real name?
It's probably not Jeff.
And he's like, it's Jeff. And I'm like, dude, it's not Jeff.
Could be Jeff.
He's like,
probably not Jeff.
it is Jeff. And I'm like, it is not Jeff.
It could be Jeff.
It's not
probably
Jeff.
not Jeff.
I'm like, what's Jeff short for, right? Like, it's something crazy. No, I mean, it's...
Jefferson.
But if they don't tell you, if it's like a legit person, they'll tell you their full name.
What do you mean?
Like, I understand that there's a lot of people who have a different first name based on wherever country they come from. It's...
Oh,
they
so
don't-
you're like, if you call Apple and they're like, hey, I'm Jeff. You're like, Jeff, what's your real name? He's like, I'm
Whatever.
some name.
that maybe I can't pronounce.
Then
Fair
it's
enough.
like, oh, then they're like, yeah, that's a legitimate thing that you're calling me for.
Yeah.
But if you call them and you're like, hey, Jeff, what's your real name? Oh, it's totally Jeff. Suspicious.
Well, if they have a very thick accent.
Well, my presumption was the Apple guy also had an accent, but he was willing to tell you his real name because his business
Well,
is
this is
shady.
Google. This is Google.
But you were telling me that this was a Google scam,
Yes, it was
and that's
Google.
how you would identify that it was a Google.
Well, it's one of the many things. You know,
Because he wouldn't tell you his real name.
he wouldn't tell me his real name, and then what was the other thing? I was like, can I call you back? Like,
That's
what's your
cool.
phone number and I'll call you back? Or can you send me an email with your information and I'll call you back? If they don't give me that, I'm like, yeah, you're sick,
Yeah.
you know.
That's
Yeah.
true. I've never gotten the.
I need your credit card because you know blah blah blah.
Is it the Nicaraguan prince? Ethiopian?
Nigerian.
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 That was a weird mix of countries. Yeah, never gotten one of those.
You never got the.
Mm-mm.
If hey, can I just deposit $8 trillion into your bank account?
Yes.
What's your
please.
number? What's your bank account number?
I've seen somewhere they.
You need to send me a wire transfer for $500, and then I'm going to give you $8 trillion. Okay? And you just hold that, and then you'll get 10% of that.
Have you seen the videos of the guy scamming the scammers? I think you would like that.
Yeah.
What's the German word that means satisfaction from another person's?
Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
That's like my, if I had like, you know, there's spirit animals, it's like, that's my spirit word.
Yeah. I like that word.
I have them filled with Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude?
Yes.
I like it. Good.
That's the code word for today.
That's a good one.
I don't expect you guys to know how to spell it, but Schadenfreude. All right.
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude. Auf Wiedersehen.